Okay, welcome to the Herman T. Laurel edition of Politics Today. And this week, while we do not have the tsunami from the ocean, we have a tsunami of controversy over the ARMM elections. And maybe other people forget that there's another controversy there on whether we should use the Hocus PCOS machines where there are so many questions still unanswered by the COMELEC and by Smartmatic. And the most technically knowledgeable from our IT sector in the country has never found satisfactory answers to their questions. While, of course, media has said that it was a great exercise, how great the Philippines is again in having held a successful automated election, as if other countries like Germany were far, far lower than the Philippines in competence because the Germans have rejected the use of such machines. So this is a very crucial question this week that we will be discussing because I think people are tearing and fighting tooth and nail over this postponement one of the elections, and second, over the question of the machines, which will cost how much. We will get all these answers from our two guests. Of course, Mr. Manu Alquas, you're very familiar with. I don't know if this is half a dozen appearances already of Manu Alquas in the Herman T. Laurel edition of Talk News TV or Politics Today, from Systems Consult, or President of Systems Consult, and Ms. Maricor Acol, the first time on our show, although we have been debating since 2001 election, I don't recall.
2004.
2004 elections. Maricor is from the Philippine National IT Standards Foundation. So this foundation credentializes, if I may use the word, IT professionals. Yes, okay. So ladies first, let's ask Maricor why she's still fighting again over this issue of the ARMM and the machines for the ARMM elections.
We have several issues against the reuse of the Smartmatic PCOS because up to now, they have not complied with the requirements of the law. 9369 states that at least 6 months after the elections, the Joint Committee or the Joint Committee or Oversight Committee of Congress should come up with a report on the analysis or evaluation of the automated election system. So how can you label it to be successful if up to now we haven't received the report?
Okay, slowly. What is 9369?
That's the Republic Act that mandates the use of the automated election system for the 2010 elections.
And the Republic Act you're referring to requires that the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee, what do you call that? Is that correct?
Yes,
JCOC.
JCOC should come up with a report on the performance of the automated election system. Aside from that, COMELEC should come out with their report as well. But up to now, we have not heard from them. Smartmatic should also submit a report. The committee, the advisory council, the COMELEC advisory council, which is chaired by the CICT, should also come up with a report. I heard that before Secretary Ray Chua resigned from the CICT because there's a change in administration.
CICT. What is the CICT?
The Commission on Information and Communications Technology, CICT.
And this is a body of government or an NGO? Or?
No, this is under the Office of the President. It was created for going over, just like before during Marcos' time, there was a National Computer Center.
That's right, yeah.
Now we have the Commission on ICT with several commissioners and chaired by a secretary.
Okay. So you have so many bodies that are supposed to come out with final reviews, evaluations, and maybe recommendations. So let's review that for the benefit of the audience. JCOC, Joint Congressional Oversight Committee. COMELEC itself should come out with one, Smartmatic should come out with one, and the CICT should come out with one. But the public's impression is there has been so much discussion of this already. I think, if you ask, they would think maybe they have made all these reports because we have heard so many people talk about this.
No, they haven't even complied with the Supreme Court decision to open the source code to the IT community and to the political parties. That is also in 9369.
What attitude should people take when so many holes exist, in the implementation of this law? I'll go to Mano. Mano, my sense is that it's a sleight of hand. Ang bilis nila, nalulusot sa mata ng publiko.
Yeah.
But the fact is, ang dami pang mga butas na hindi nila pinapaliwanag. Mano.
Okay, that's on the House side. I am more of a why person. I like to ask, why should we do certain things? No? The question is, why do we have to automate the precinct counting in the ARM elections? No? I was reviewing the COMELEC website this morning, and I found out that in the last national elections, there were about 58 senatorial candidates, and there were 187 party lists. Okay, when you're tallying 58 senatorial candidates, maybe 12 presidential, vice presidential, 187 party lists.
And then senators?
Senators 58, governors, and so on down the line. You probably have between 20 and 30 positions that you're counting for, and you have about 300 candidates vying for those positions. That probably requires some automation. No? Many people say, how come in England they don't need automation? Because if the election is for parliament, maybe there's only one candidate. No? In fact, they talk about, instead of tallying, they separate the votes and then they count everything, because there's only one position. No? In the case of ARM, many people don't realize that there are only 3 positions that people will be voting for.
These are governor, vice governor?
Governor, vice governor, and the assemblyman in the particular province.
Yes.
No? So, there are only 3 positions to tally for. In the last ARM election, there were only 5 candidates. But we don't expect that this year. Because in the last election, there was only 1 candidate for governor, 1 for vice governor, and usually there were 3 candidates for assemblyman. So that's 5. In this election, probably there will be between 6 and 10 candidates. It's very easy to tally 200 voters in less than 1 hour when you're counting only for 3 positions. So why do you need automation? The problem with automation is COMELEC did not think of all the why questions in the last election. They were harping on the speed of automation. No? Unfortunately, Noynoy Aquino was proclaimed later than ERAP was proclaimed in a non-automated election.
Really? How many days? Do you recall?
About 2 weeks difference.
Even later, well, very few people noticed that.
Well, most people say, oh, automation. No? So Noynoy was proclaimed right away. No? The reason why Noynoy was proclaimed quite quickly is
quite
that
late or
no,
ERAP?
Well, ERAP was earlier, but most people question sometimes the proclamation is almost to the deadline of the inaugural, but it wasn't there. The reason why it didn't drag is because the gap was fairly big.
Yeah, it was a real landslide.
It was a landslide.
No controversy.
But if you're talking about speed, the ERAP proclamation with no automation was faster than the Noynoy proclamation with automation.
Why did this observation come only after almost 8 months after the election?
But just
anyway, that's a very important observation.
No, that's thanks to Gas Lagman, because he was the one who looks at those things.
Yeah, but there's another observation by some of the technical experts that we have, like Dr. Pablo Manalastas. He said, and Dr. Lex Muga, they're both from Ateneo.
Can you give their qualifications?
They're both in the they're both IT experts. They're both in the faculty of Ateneo.
The Ateneo, okay.
Yes, and they're both in the ICE Watch.
What's ICE Watch?
AES, Automated Election System Watch. Yeah, ACE Watch. They both said, and they noticed that they're out of the 76,000 or 75,000 plus precincts, clustered precincts. We don't have the report on 12,000 of these precincts. And that's probably what caused the delay in the proclamation, because it's not 100% complete. And you have an automated system. How can you have 12,000 clustered precincts not reported?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does not reported mean? Their votes have been counted, I suppose? Not reported? What does it mean?
I think that's what COMELEC has to answer, that their report is not complete. If you take a look at the tally, they have the tally only for, not including the 12,000. According to them, that's
amazing.
a computer glitch.
And so, what happened in that election? Did we really complete an election? Anybody? Maricor? Mano? But we'll go back to Mano's why. But let's complete this. So that this is another startling fact that we're beginning to see. The first, of course, is that the ERAP counting was faster in proclamation than Noy. And now, aside from all the gaps that you mentioned before of the official bodies that should have come up with a report, final report, that does not exist up to now. Now you tell us that 12,000 of the precincts have not been reported to.
According to them, there's an HTML gap, or there's a computer glitch, or I don't really know. But that was the report that I got, because we have this group, the AES Watch, who has come out with these observations. And I think it's in the CENPEG report that they submitted.
Okay, CENPEG, can you please inform again?
CENPEG is the Center for Empowerment in Government, People Empowerment in Government.
Yeah, these are sila Temi Rivera. These are also technical people.
They're not IT experts.
They're more political.
They're more political analysts. So they came out. Of course, they got the advice from Dr. Pablo Manalastas and Dr. Lex Muga, and they got other experts like Lito Averia, Gas Lagman, Mano Alquaz, several people, Jimmy Caro from UP. They got several experts to come up with an analysis of the results. Also, the Philippine Computer Society filed a case in the Supreme Court, wherein, together with CENPEG, asking for the source code.
Yeah, has that been resolved by the Supreme Court?
Yes, the Supreme Court already mandated COMELEC to come out with the source code and give these people...
Is it out already, the source code?
Up to now, not yet.
Okay, I'll go back. Let me just do a summation. Final reports, official reports have not been submitted by the bodies that should submit.
Yes.
You brought up very important observations. It's not necessarily faster as the count and proclamation of ERAP compared to Illinois. And the why of Mano is you have shown evidence that it's not really going to be faster. And because there are very few candidates, it's not really necessary. What if people say, why not have the machines anyway? So the question is it costing us a lot to have these machines for the ARM election?
Okay, while we were waiting for the show, this morning I printed some data from COMELEC, and there's supposedly about 15 million registered voters, and in ARM there's 1,887,000. So let's just say 2 million registered voters in ARM versus 50 million nationwide. So that's 1/25. For the national election, with all those candidates, we spent 7.2 billion on automation. How can you justify spending 2 billion
2.2
for 1/25 the number of voters, and at the same in ARM.
Yeah, so how do they justify it? Your question is very basic, I think, for everyone. You would think that maybe, okay, well, let's spend 500 million for ARM election. This is 2.2 billion. So what is their justification? What is your desk mates? Because COMELEC Chairman Brillantes, desk mate pala ni sa high school, ni Mano Alquaz.
According to Chairman Brillantes, when we went to talk to him, no, the PCOS will only cost about 150 million.
Okay.
But it's the entire system that will cost 2.2 or 2.1 billion pesos. So he was trying to justify the purchase of 4,000 plus PCOS machines at 150 million, which will be used at the ARMM. But the whole system, which, by the way, looking at it from a systems point...
That does not include the salaries for the teachers and so on?
No, that's out.
I think this is for the whole system.
Yeah, but
for communications and project management, all of that, and also the materials that will be used, for a system that we think is either maliciously not used properly or gross incompetence, because would you believe that whenever you go into any operation, you must have synchronized time.
That's right.
Even a bank robbery,
Yeah,
they synchronize their watches.
You're going back to the problem of the
Of
time
the-
synchronization in the last election.
But even so, this system, and that's why they say they're going to correct the bugs. Okay, so they admit that there were bugs because in the 2010 elections, there was no synchronization of time,
Okay.
so you couldn't see whether that report is accurate or not because the time
That's
time
right.
logs, okay, were not recorded. And that was one of those that Sisters Lab said should have had compensating controls.
Yeah, even in this show, I have to keep synchronizing on the clock
Oh,
because we have 3 minutes before the break. So I'll go to Mano.
That's not the worst case.
Oh.
The worst case is how can you give the job again to Smartmatic, which pretended to be ISO 9000 certified when it was a sister company that was ISO 9000 certified. That is quality control. How can you imagine somebody who knows quality control shipping 76,000 machines without testing a single one of them on a real ballot? Because their excuse for getting back those cards was they did not test it with a real ballot. Remember, I said there were 187 party list. No? So the front part for national elections was full, but the back part for local elections was empty. So they had been testing everything with single-spaced candidates.
Yeah.
And because there was so much space, for the real ballots, they made it double space. That's the reason, supposedly, why they
That was
couldn't
given,
read.
yeah.
Read, yeah.
Therefore, they had to redo it. Of course, the people with naughty minds say they already planned to cheat for
That's
the
right.
number 3 candidate, but since ERAP became number 2, it was too hard to cheat. Therefore, they backtracked and they said, let's get back those
Yeah.
cards that have been programmed to cheat and let's put them not to cheat.
Yeah.
That's what the people with dirty minds think.
Well, I have a dirty mind. And it seems that a lot of people who have dirty minds are the intelligent people that I know. That's a big problem for me. But let's go back to the cost. So they just say 2.2 billion for the entire system.
Yes.
And you are familiar with the systems. What is your reaction to this? Obviously, you are skeptical, but can you give us some details?
No,
why this is not justified. In
Even
details?
if we go to the 150 million, it is not justified because my estimate is for 5,000 machines, they should only be paying 50 million. The reason they should only be paying 50 million is Comelec allowed Smartmatic to have an unfair contract where they could collect 1.729 billion without delivering anything significant. No, they delivered a report, so they get 400 million. They deliver 200 test machines, they get 400 million. They deliver a report on transmission, they get so much. They deliver parang an agreement on software, they get so much.
This is for the ARM or you
No,
talked
that's-
about
this is
before?
for the 2010
That's for the election.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So actually, Smartmatic could have run away with the 1.7 billion without delivering anything. Fortunately, they delivered. But in the contract, only 35% of the 7.2 billion is the cost of the machines, the rental of the machines.
Only 35?
Only
5%
35%
is
of
the
the
cost of the
7.2
machines.
billion, according to their contract. I questioned the contract, and this attorney Ramadan, what's his name? Rafanan.
Rafanan.
Yeah.
Rafanan said, no, we can do anything in the contract. Okay, so live up to the contract. You can only pay 30% of the rental of the machines for purchase. So if you use 30% for 5,000 machines, it's 50 million. It's not 140 million. So the 140 million is overpriced.
Okay, so the hocus pocus is not just in the election count, but it's also in the machines. I think that's a
No,
a point here,
it's also in the contract and the payments.
yeah, and everything about the machines
Yeah.
and the systems. Yeah, go ahead. Last few seconds. Anything to wrap up before we take our break?
Well, one of the problems is in the RFP, they didn't
RFE, what's that?
The
request for proposal.
Okay.
They didn't put proper provisions. No?
Okay.
In a business situation, you put payment terms.
Okay.
Because if you can get the money up front, then you can bid lower because you can get that money, deposit it somewhere, earn interest, and so on and so forth. Diba?
Okay.
So payment terms had to be included in the contract. And there
Okay.
were no payment terms.
Now we'll now have to take our break. We'll come back to the other terms too. Okay, take it away.